Hi, everyone. It's Sandy Orlando and Cindy Lewis Caballero from CL Performance Training and from Endurance Event Productions. And we are talking today about preparing for a marathon. And we are coming at it from a couple of different perspectives. Cindy's background as a former professional Ironman triathlete and having competed in ultra races, endurance races, lots of marathons, and being very competitive in those events. My perspective is coming from 2 decades, a little bit later in life, and having been an athlete that sort of came up and tried out all these things to find out what I can do, and being sort of semi-competitive. So we've got a different approach to our coaching. And so when we're talking about preparing for a marathon, we're going to be coming at it from slightly different directions, and yet that'll become obvious pretty soon. So Cindy, we're just in the when you're recording right now, we're in the middle of summer and we're preparing for the early September Georgina Marathon. It's a flat marathon. We've got lots of runners who are coming out who are competitive, but also new marathon runners coming into their last training block. What should they be expecting at this point from your perspective?
Well, I think they should be expecting to want to get the race done by this point. They should be expecting to be putting in a whole lot of miles each week, and going through what social activities can I and can't I take part in? How do I fit in my sleep? How do I fit in all my running along with my kids and my work and all the rest of it? So that's what you should feel like at this point. Running wise, in your program, you should have gotten pretty high in your long run mileage. So hopefully you've got a plan you're following. And before you get to Georgina or whatever race you might be racing in September, you want to make sure that you've gotten in a number of runs, at least 3, over that 30K mark for your long run. And weekly mileage. So depending on who you are and what your goal is, if your goal is, to complete a marathon and feel good at the end, you'll want to be in that 60 to 70K per week range. And if you're someone that's racing a little bit more elite, perhaps you're trying to qualify for Boston, have a PB, win your age category, you might see your mileage up, towards 80 to 100K plus per week. So those are the things to look at. Look at your weekly mileage and look at your long run mileage and where you're at now and where you're planning on building to.
And also you should be including different types of workouts in your program each week. So you've got your long run with your big mileage, but also building volume over a steady tempo run, and also your speed work too, right?
Yeah.
So
it's important to get some of that speed work, some of that tempo running, certainly some race pace running in some of those long runs. And I feel like since Georgina in particular is so flat, it's almost more important to do some of that, because you want to simulate that feeling you're going to have at the end of that race. And you want to be able to simulate like the hurt you're going to feel in that marathon. So in the second half of some, not all, not even half, but some of your long runs, you're going to want to have some race pacing and faster segments built in there.
Mm-hmm. So in summer, of course, people have difficulties with things like facing heat and humidity, or maybe they're going on vacation, or maybe they've got accumulated fatigue and they're just having trouble with the idea of getting these things done. Often it feels like, why did I take this on? So when we talked earlier, your approach was quite different than mine. What's your approach?
I think you need to expect that it's hard at this phase in your training. You should kind of know that when you start, that at this point, it's going to be tough. There's going to be some times that you don't want to do it. Sorry, my phone just rang. There's going to be some times that you don't want to do it. But you need to remember that it's not only physical training, it's also mental training. And you need to find a way to get yourself out of bed. You need to think about, why did I sign up for this? What are my goals? And find a way to get the work done, provided you're not sick and not injured. That's, it's hard training for a marathon, and there's a reason why most people don't do it. If it was easy, everyone would do it and everyone would be fast.
You put that very nicely compared to what you said before to me. You signed up for it, just go out and do it.
Well, that's the other way of saying it.
That's the other way of saying it. However, there are ways to get around or to at least mitigate some of these things. For example, with heat adjusting, that's a real thing. There are formulas out there that say, oh, if it's a certain temperature, you should be adjusting by so many seconds in your pace. I don't know that that's something that you would want to go strictly by. I think it's more by feel. If you are feeling that it's just too hot, there are different ways to, mitigate that. First of all, slowing it down being the primary thing, choosing a different time of day. And this can also help with if you're getting just that training fatigue where you're thinking, oh my God, I just don't want to do it. Try something new. So, I would encourage athletes, maybe if you're used to running in the morning, run in the evening when it's getting dark. It's a whole different experience. Break it into two different, do a couple of loops and come back and refresh and then go back out again. Or put your watch in your pocket and just forget about what your pace is supposed to be and just go out and enjoy the fact that you can run. Now my phone's ringing. So changing up your routine can add an awful lot to just refreshing your brain. Cindy, you have mentioned something about committing to it and the mental strength. What's on your mind there?
It takes a lot of mental strength to run a race like a marathon, even a half marathon. There's going to be times where it gets really hard, no matter who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So I think it's important to recognize that that's something we are also training with our training program. We're not just training our bodies. Some of those long runs are built to train just that. They're built to do a long run on really tired legs, for example, so that your brain knows how to work through those moments of what am I doing this for? Why am I putting my body through this? To familiarize yourself with those feelings so that mentally you can say on race day, hey, I've been here before. I know that this is how I was going to feel. I know that this is temporary. I know that a mile or two later, I'm going to feel better. I know that I can handle this, right? So that's one thing. And then also, mentally you want to practice dealing with those feelings, even when you're not running. So spending a little bit of time in this next 6 weeks thinking about, okay, people talk about that wall that they hit in a marathon, 30K, 32, 34K in. Just like everybody else, I'm going to experience some discomfort at that point. What am I going to do when I feel it? One thing that people talk about is like acknowledge it. So I'm going to say, hey, here's the pain. I knew you were coming. I'm going to deal with you because I've thought about it already and I've found strategies to do so. So acknowledging it, knowing everyone goes through it is the first step. Other things you can think about is you can have a little bit of a file folder in the front of your brain that you're going to call on. And in that file folder are going to be some of those hard workouts that you might have doubted yourself when you started or even during it, but you still accomplished. Mm-hmm. So having those nearby that you can pull out and say, hey, I can do hard things. I've done hard things before. I think it's just important to think about how you're going to feel and strategize about how you're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm. And using some of the tricks like counting or your mantras, quick and light, whatever. This is a good time to practice those types of things, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I would even put like a Ziploc bag with a note inside it that have those strategies on it. So that when you get to that point in the race, you don't forget. You don't say, oh my gosh, I just can't do this today. You pull that out and say, oh yeah, I knew I was going to do this. And this is what I was going to say to myself, or this is what my mantra was going to be, or this is how I was going to get through it. So you have something to call on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I've written it on my arm before. Mm-hmm. So it's not another thing I have to remember to pull out. It's just there, right?
Yeah.
One of the, for people who are having trouble with not making it through their program, say they've been on vacation, they've been injured, they've been sick, and they've kind of got 3/4 of the training done. I would say at this point, don't give up on this. Just reevaluate what your goals are. What is it you're expecting to get from this race? So maybe you went into it thinking, oh, this race was going to be my PB effort, and that's not working out for you. So adjust that expectation and go into it saying, look, I can still run. I'm able to do this. All the people watching them from the sidelines are cheering, not running. So I'm still one of these people who's doing this. but get clear on just why. So, there's no magic that's going to happen out there. If you're getting 3/4 of your training done, expect that you're going to get 3/4 of what you were looking for. And you're not just going to have this magical day where all of a sudden you get a PB. So be ready for that, and accept it. Acceptance is a big part of being an athlete, especially an athlete over the course of many, many years. One of the things that I wanted to bring into the discussion is the fact that if you don't try at this point, you may end up regretting not trying. So really go for it. 20 years, 2 decades past Cindy, and what some of the things that I regret are that I didn't know what I could have done earlier if I'd known how to train, or if I'd known how to draw on that mental strength and actually go for it. And that's don't let that happen. Go for it now, but do it with, I guess, a plan and with good coaching.
Yeah. And one thing you said there, Sandie, is, when you can only get 75% in or whatever, know why you signed up. Like, it's important to always know why you signed up, and especially when things get rough, and especially on race day, you need to know that why and know what's driving you, and know the purpose, the reason that you're out there putting out that kind of effort, because that's what's going to get you through those big training weeks, which you should be in the middle of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to get you through kilometer 30 to 42 on race day.
Yeah. The other thing too will be practicing good nutrition. And a lot of these long runs now are good ways to do that. So, you should be making sure that you're getting those electrolytes in. A lot of people don't think about enough electrolytes. I think it's just water. And there's a reason why you need those electrolytes in your body. Maybe, Cindy, you can tell the scientific reason for that.
You need electrolytes because when you sweat, you're not just sweating out water, you're sweating out electrolytes. So if you just take in water, you can actually dehydrate yourself. So you want to make sure that you take in, a proper electrolyte drink. And many of us also, depending on what type of sweat we have and our sweat rate, we might also need to supplement with things like salt tablets. So that's a pretty individualized thing. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us.
Mm-hmm. And nutrition as well. Making sure that you're getting gels and carbohydrates and you're carrying them with you. One of the things that you're practicing when you're doing those long runs is how you're logistically going to do this. So on race day, sure, you've got aid stations that you're able to draw from. How are you going to replicate that for yourself on your long runs? You're going to carry it, or are you going to put things on your course and do a couple loops? Don't make the excuse that, there's no water fountains along the way. That doesn't cut it. You need to really plan for how you're going to manage that, because it's so important. If you're getting dehydrated, it's going to affect your performance. It's also going to affect your recovery. And that's something that all runners, regardless of if it's a marathon or even 10K runners, especially in this weather, you really need to be prepared for and practice it.
And something to think about when you're practicing is, do you want to carry all of your own fuel with you on race day? Or do you want to use what's on course? Because you need to practice with what you're going to use on race day. If I practice with a certain sports drink and then on race day, I suddenly switch to something else, it might have a different type of sugar, a different concentration. My body just might not handle it. So, for example, if you're going to race in Georgina, we've got Gatorade on the course in 2025. So if you plan to use that at the water stations, you should be practicing with that now. So some stuff to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And then also your kit, what you're going to wear. In the heat, our feet swell, our bodies experience chafing in places that we didn't expect to. And so, don't try anything new on race day is a real thing. If you're thinking that you'd like to get yourself a new kit for it, try running in it. You may find out that it's just chafing the hell out of your arms or something like that. Find that out now when it's hot. Figure out how old your shoes are and make sure that you are replacing them soon enough to break them in so that you're not running on old broken down shoes. And there's always a question, which shoes am I going to wear? These ones are my carbon soles or this or that. So that's the kind of thing you want to practice in your long runs and figure out which ones will work for you on race day. Recovery strategies. You need to make sure that you are recovering. And vacation strategies. if you're going away, be really careful about not breaking your toe playing beach volleyball or some silly thing like that, but also figure out how you're going to continue your training during that time off. What sort of things do you suggest?
You know, you signed up for a marathon. You got to make sure if you're going to go on vacation that you can run while you're there. And you need to be able to follow your training plan or plan your training plan so that you've got a recovery week and can do a little bit less running. If you happen to go somewhere that, you know, is really not safe for running, like honestly, I just wouldn't plan that if I'm planning to run a marathon shortly. But if that's the case, there are some ways that you can cross train to kind of maintain some fitness or not lose too much while you're gone.
Yeah, and I think the reality is when you've got kids and families and the whole thing, sometimes it's just not appropriate. Like where you're going, you don't have much choice. So I work with my athletes to find alternatives, and like really 1 week is not going to take apart your training, but it may have an impact, especially if you're at a 34K long run. Let's figure out if we need to readjust your schedule or different ways to get that done.
Yep. The earlier you can put that stuff in your calendar, the better. So if I'm working with an athlete and I've got 16 or 20 weeks to prepare them for a marathon, I just want to know when that vacation is right at the start so that you can plan those build weeks and recovery weeks with that in mind. So the earlier you've got that stuff on the calendar, same with like work travel and stuff like that, the easier it is for us to plan around it.
Yeah. And adding in those little 5K races for fun is always something that we're dealing with our athletes. Is it a good idea or not a good idea? So what position do you take on that?
It can be a great idea, but again, it's got to be planned from the beginning. You can't just throw a 5K run in on a 100K training week the day after or the day before your 34K run.
Yeah.
But 5Ks actually can be great as fitness tests, and they don't need a ton of time to taper and recover. So a 5K is a perfect race to put in a marathon training cycle. I have a harder time with 10Ks because 10Ks take a whole lot more out of you, meaning you take more recovery time after. You need to taper a little bit more before them. So as long as it's planned ahead, it can be great.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that can replace a speed run. If it's not planned ahead and you just decide you're going to do it, that can replace your speed workout. Anything that we've missed before we sign off today?
No, I think, you guys, if you have any questions moving forward, Sandie and I are here to chat. You can reach out to us at clperformancetraining@gmail.com. You can look at more of what we have to offer at CL Performance Training at www.clperformancetraining.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the start and finish line in Georgina and Oakville coming up in the next couple of months.